Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Personal Development and Training. My name is Wendy Morgan, and I'm your host today. Today, we are going to have a special guest, Stephanie McClung, as she is going to go over, I can't believe I went ahead and I just lost the name of what we're doing here. The 7 habits for personal and professional growth. So before we get started, these particular programs will help you build your business, help you build your personal development in depth, so therefore you can attract what it is you want to attract within LifeWave. So with that, I'd like to welcome our special guest, Stephanie. Stephanie, want to say hi?
Hello.
And Stephanie, if you would, let everybody know a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
I live in Texas, and I was a teacher for 20 years and then went back to school and got my doctorate in Christian counseling and theology, and went into Christian counseling and neurofeedback, and did that for 10 years before actually having to retire due to disability issues. But then, praise God, when I learned about the LifeWave patches, and it completely changed my life. So I'm actually beginning, 9 months ago, doing much better than I was for many, many years.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And everybody, if I'm correct, Stephanie, you'll be sharing that very testimony this Friday, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So you guys can jump on the Patching podcast this Friday and hear her story. So with that, Stephanie, you and I got connected via Amazon tag, and she says you're really great at teaching the 7 steps to personal development and how to move forward and how to really create some really healthy habits. So with that, I've already made you co-host, so you can just jump in and you've got the floor, love.
Okay. So I was, as I stated, I was a teacher for 20 years, and I came across the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey early on in my career. And I just saw this as a wonderful avenue of teaching for my students in the middle school classroom. Developed a curriculum, used it with my students, and then Sean Covey, Stephen Covey's son, came out with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. It would have saved me a whole lot of work had I started after he had come out with that. So I'm gonna I'll share my screen with you, and I put together a slideshow, and I'm just gonna share with you some of the basics from the 7 habits of highly effective people, and it is perfect for both personal and professional growth. And I believe, Wendy, we're going to have questions at the end in case I rush over something too quickly or I'm unclear of something. I have not taught this in many, many years, but I've pulled out both of my books and I've been going back through it, and I have enjoyed going back through it. But if there's anything that is unclear, I will be happy to clear that up.
Yeah. So everybody, we will have a Q&A at the end. So okay. Write down your questions. I might miss some if you put them in chat, so do write them down. Everybody, please grab pen and pencil. You're going to definitely want to take some notes on this one. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Oh, it's not.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, so you can see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. And again, this is from Stephen Covey and his son, Sean Covey's books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and then The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. I love, and in both of these books, they start with this poem, and by John DeLem. I am your greatest companion. I am your greatest helper or your heaviest burden. I will push you onward or I will drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Half the things you do, you might as well turn over to me, and I will do them quickly and correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great men, and alas, of all failures as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I am not a machine, though I work with the precision of a machine, plus the intelligence of man. You may run me for profit or run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will put the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? And the answer is, I am habit. And it's such that I would always read that in my classroom, and I'd have my students jot down as I was reading kind of what they thought the answer was going to be. And so that was how I would then introduce to my students when we would start, because we would do this. We would cover all 7 habits, but we would actually, we'd always run out of time by the end of the year. We would do 1 habit per 6 weeks and, try to get the extra in there. But we would begin the very first week of school with this. And habit is the intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. And knowledge is the what we want to do, the what we want in life, the what we want in our career. And this kind of guides our learning. The skills, this is how are we going to get there? And the desire is the why is it even important to us? And interestingly enough, when I was a neurofeedback provider, we would always do things in 20 session increments. And the reason for that is the brain itself as an organ learns at or around 20 times of doing something. And so if you've ever heard, they say you do something 21 times, you've developed a new habit. That actually is scientifically proven through brain function, which was always fascinating because we could always reach a new norm in neurofeedback with 20 sessions. So when you look at the 7 habits, I love this picture here of the 7 habits because it shows, of course, habit 7 is up here at the top. Habit 1, 2, and 3, they are underground. Those are the personal habits. Those are the things, this is the character. This is who we are. We're going to look at that in a minute. But we've got to build strong roots. And we have to have a firm foundation in order to be able to work effectively with others. So habits 1, 2, and 3 are the private habits. Habits 4, 5, and 6, these are the habits of interpersonal relationships. These are the habits of working together. These are some of the things that I personally see work so beautifully with LifeWave. And habit 7, sharpen the saw, is the habit of daily renewal. And I like this image because it shows habit 7 up here at the top. And when I was teaching the habits, the first few years that I was teaching them, we'd get through the first 6 habits, but we'd always run out of time to finish habit 7. And what I found was, as my health was also deteriorating back when I was in my 20s, I began realizing habit 7 was the most important of all the habits. Because if we don't sharpen the saw, if we don't have daily renewal, we're not going to be able to work effectively in the realm of our personal growth or interdependently in our professional growth. So we are going to actually, in a moment, we're going to start with habit 7, and then we'll look at the other 6, because that daily renewal is so important. So paradigms and principles, these are they're just two very important ideas to understand going into when you're looking at personal growth, professional growth, and you're looking at the 7 habits. A paradigm is that's the lens through which we see the world. And in the classroom, I would always have all kinds of different glasses, crazy glasses, different prisms, all types of lenses for the kids to, I would put something up on the board and I'd have them to describe it. Well, of course, everybody was seeing it differently because of the type of lens that they were wearing. And it's important because this is how we view the world. And principles, when we can learn to see the world through a set of principles, then it's that undisturbed joy, where we're able to have joy regardless of the circumstances around us, because we're seeing the world based on principles. And I've always just loved this cartoon here. Shows a paradigm shift. And that paradigm shift is so important when we learn to take off the lenses through which we're seeing the world and try to see the world through principles. And when we see the world through a principle-centered paradigm, the fruits of the Spirit are a wonderful example. Seeing the world here through, whether it be the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, that's going to have a huge effect on all of these areas of our life. If we choose the principle of honesty or integrity, gratitude, and we learn to respond to each area of our life through those lenses, it will change. It'll change us from the inside out, because we're learning to not respond to, maybe an enemy, let's say, or someone that we're not very close to because we may have some kind of issues. Well, in life, if we respond to them differently than we respond to our friend, when we're responding to them based upon a paradigm, based upon a pair of lenses that, well, this person I don't like, or this person doesn't like me, so I'm going to respond to them differently. Whereas if we choose to respond to each person with love or with respect, then they may choose to not like us still, but then we've been true to our principles and it's not on us, then that is on them, if that makes sense. So, but choosing this, it's important, whether it be, for me, it's, I just try to meditate on the fruits of the Spirit for my principles, but choosing even 2 or 3 principles that are going to be your guiding principles that are going to affect your personal decisions and your professional decisions. It is one of the ways to move toward being more effective. And this, the personality, there are 2 ethics that they discuss in the book: personality ethic and character ethic. And I love the iceberg for this. I always kept an iceberg up in my classroom for this very, very reason. And, we don't see 90% of that iceberg. Our character, which is what is inside of us, people don't see that. What people see is only that little 10% that we allow them to see. And so people who strive for being the best, impressing others, we see this, when we see this type of behavior, well, I'm so sorry, the foundation is not going to be strong enough to hold it up. And so this is where we need to be focused and spending the majority of our time for our own personal growth, and then also for professional growth. Michael Jordan, he said 90% of his success was on the practice field. In the practice court. It wasn't in the game. Only 10% was in the game. But if you expect to, and also if you expect to make 10% of your free throws, then privately you need to be making 90%. The character ethic, this is what we're made of. And so trying to build a healthy inside, setting those principles, choosing those principles that we're going to begin responding with, help to strengthen us on the inside, which then has an effect directly on how we respond to the outside. Personal bank account for the private habits 1, 2, and 3 are the private habits. And those are the ones that in that tree are underground. And having a personal bank account, we are going to have deposits, we're going to have withdrawals, but learning to keep promises to yourself. Small acts of kindness for yourself. Be gentle with yourself, forgive yourself. Be honest, renew, and tap into your talents. So these are ways that we can deposit into ourselves. This morning, when Ann and I were talking this morning on goal set, we were talking about just going through my goals. And, one of the things that we talked about is, give yourself the freedom to take a few minutes when you need to. And it's important because otherwise we burn ourselves out and then we're not being our best for ourselves. We're not being able to function and perform by principle. We're kind of becoming reactive and reacting to the things around us. So focusing on that personal bank account and trying to make deposits daily to that personal bank account, which takes us to sharpen the saw. Habit 7. So habit 7 is, here, and I love it. We have to have the sun, the clouds, the moon, the rain, the oxygen in the air. We have to have all of that to function on a daily basis. A plant has to have that to survive. We have got to focus daily on taking care of ourselves physically, spiritually, mentally, and then social and emotionally. And these are all aspects, and research has been done. These 4, learning to live with them in balance and taking time each day for them, is going to make a difference in how effective we're able to be in our private relationship, just with ourselves and our daily living, and in our professional relationships and our personal relationships as well. So the body, the physical dimension. And we live in a society where when we get busy, this is the one that goes first. For so many people. My husband it drives him crazy, but I will ask him, or I will share with him, I have different meals planned for the week. And he doesn't ever understand that. But on those rare occasions when he says, don't worry about it, I'll take care of dinner, he ends up bringing home something that isn't healthy. So, it's the planning is important, and it's part of that scheduling. And I know on our team, they talk a lot about, have that calendar, live by that calendar, make your notes so that you can actually plan things out effectively. And one of the things, plan a time to exercise several days a week, because that physical is so important. Eating healthy, and it does require planning, having to plan our meals a little bit better. Having a healthy sleep routine and schedule sleep hygiene is so important. And this one right here, we live in a society that does not teach that this is healthy, because we live in a society that very often, if you take 15 minutes to put your feet up and relax, you're seen as lazy. But we don't want to burn out. And so being true to what our body needs, then taking that time to relax is very important, so that we can be refreshed, so that we can be what we need for even that next stage of the day. And so it may be 5 minutes a few times a day that you do this. I know as a young mother, I had to plan. I was teaching full time, and I had 15 minutes from the time I left school till the time I picked up my girls. And that was my time to physically, I just had a pretend shoebox in the passenger seat. And that was my time to just take all my cares from school and pray through them and put them in that shoebox, so that by the time I got to the girls, the lid was on it. And, then when we got home, it was time for them. And so I had to be very intentional. We go through those phases in our life where we have to be very intentional with taking that time. Then when you've got a busy schedule as a young mom, it's difficult to find that time to relax. But making that time is important, so that we don't just burn ourselves out. The spiritual dimension. And, for some people, this is music. For some people, it's just taking a drive. But you want to find something each day that fills your soul. It's important because, I love, and this is something that Stephen Covey says, spiritual renewal is a quadrant 2. We're going to talk about what that is. Investment of time that we cannot afford to neglect. We are made body, mind, and spirit. And we have to acknowledge that spiritual realm of our lives. And, for some people, it's, what feeds your soul? It may be listening to meditations in the morning. It may be, just listening, putting on praise and worship when I'm driving. That's, my thing. But, and then finding that time each day for what is going to fill you spiritually. And then mind, sharpening your mind. There, so many different things. And, also for us professionally, we have such a wealth of knowledge at our hands that we can daily work with. And we can, just pick up a podcast while you're eating lunch and watch it. But constantly renewing our mind and learning. And we are involved. We're so thankful to be involved in a company where there's just so much knowledge that we're able to gain and work on the mental daily. And then the emotional development. Just really building those relationships, serving, laughing. Like they say, it takes twice as many, or how many more muscles to frown than smile. So that's habit 7, daily renewal. And I do encourage each of us to set that goal, to plan that time for our daily renewal. Habits 1, 2, and 3 are the private habits. So those are the ones that nobody sees necessarily. But this is what makes our foundation strong, because if these roots weren't strong and this tree represented our work life, this is not, I mean, it's not going to be able to withstand any kind of pressure or high wind or stress that's going to come its way if the roots aren't strong first. And so that is where habit 1 comes in. And habit 1 is be proactive. We have the power to choose. We are the driver. And with being proactive means we learn to respond based on principles. So we're not letting any one situation, the slide that I showed you with the principles, and then it had all the aspects of our life around it. Well, rather than that one aspect of our life choosing how we're going to respond, we respond based upon our principles. And I took this from both books. I just kind of pulled some stuff together. But reactive people are going to respond based upon being easily offended. They may blame others, get angry, say things they may later regret. Whereas people who are proactive are not going to be easily offended. They're going to take responsibility for their choices. They're going to think before they act because they're responding proactively. Bounce back after the negative, and we know that, I mean, we've all been shot down, and when we're talking with someone, and and learning to just, if we're responding to that person in a reactive way and we become offended, well, then it changes everything from that point forward, and it's going to change the way that we view speaking to the next person versus speaking to someone from that principle-centered paradigm and understand, well, I can't control how that person feels, and that's okay. It doesn't change what I believe. And so still learning to move forward without letting that pull you down. Every year in my classroom, we would begin the year when we were doing habit 1 with an I can't funeral. And I would have my students, I'd have the whole funeral dirge going, and they would have to write all their I can'ts, everything they've ever said I can't do, or can't, any I can't on paper, and they'd have to bring them up, and we'd fold them, and then we'd have the whole funeral procession, and we'd go outside and we would bury our I can'ts. And we did this, I did it for 10 years in the classroom. And then we would come back into the classroom and we would hang up I can't's epitaph. And it would have the date that we had the funeral that year. And it would say at the bottom, survived by brothers and sister, I can, I will, I'm going to, right away. And I'd gotten that out of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I loved it. And so it worked beautifully in my classroom for my students, and my girls knew at home they were not ever allowed to use those words. But it would always be funny whenever a new student would come in, partway through the year, and they'd ask a question, and then they'd be like, well, I can't. You could just almost hear an audible gasp, that sometimes in the classroom, because everyone knew they were not allowed to use those words. So, but, so I challenge each of us to focus on our language. And how many times do we say, I can't? And change it. Instead of I can't, say, and what I would say when my girls would say, well, I can't do that, such and such, and I would catch them and I'd say, you mean you won't? And then they'd be like, well, no, that's not what I'm saying. So, but, so just learning to pay attention, because, we live by a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if we tell ourselves, I can't do this, I can't talk to this person, I can't ever remember what to say, if we fill our mind with the I can'ts, then we become our own worst enemy. We get in our own way of our own success. This equation is just a really good one to remember: being proactive. E plus R equals O. It is event plus our response is what determines the outcome. The event does not determine the outcome. We have the power to choose how we respond, and it is our response to the event that will determine the outcome. And just another way of looking at the being proactive.
I just wanted to interject for a minute. That previous screen, that was powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That pulls the power back into the individual. So you guys, you're never at a whim of life. You're never at a whim of your business. You're never at a whim of anything. Just like, so Stephanie's teaching you empowerment, because all this decisions begins within you. I love this. Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, certainly, certainly. And pay attention to where your circle of concern is. Are you, and I have a few different images here. So a reactive person, this is their circle of influence. It's real small, and they focus on all of these things in this big blue circle here, which in this one, those are the things you can't control. So if our focus is on the things that we're not able to control, we're going to feel pretty defeated most of the time. But if we expand our circle of influence to those things which we can control, our actions, thoughts, responses, and the things that we can influence, we have expanded then the power that we have. And we've also decreased our concern of those things that are outside of our control. So it's just one more way of looking at it. You know, we cannot always control the events, but we can always control our response. So, okay, habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. And it's, you know, what is it? Measure, what does that say? Measure twice, cut once. And this is our mental creation for what we want in life, for what we're going to do. It is the blueprint for successes inside of you, and it stays there unless you take it out and create it. And begin with the end in mind is where we take that intersection of to create a habit, the knowledge, skill, and the desire. And we draw out our map for how we want to get where we're going. And when I was looking back, it was a DuPont leadership training that I had been through, where we learned this too, in a way that, so that. And that was how I wrote my mission statement originally, and how a lot of my students wrote theirs. Your mission statement may be a series of quotes. It may be lyrics from a song. This is the two in a way that, so that gets very descriptive. And because I spent an entire 6 weeks on this habit with my students, and I was a writing and reading teacher, you know, they would do their fun one, and then we would do this one more in depth as our writing practice for the month. But what I love about LifeWave and our team, what we see, our team leadership, they even say, look, you need to see it, feel it, you need to visualize it, you need to believe it. And that is that map of beginning with the end in mind, knowing where you want to go, and then seeing yourself get there. The life you make is the life you will have. Your decisions are your blueprint. And so again, they're, you know, quote collections, brain dump, speed writing, retreat. But I really do encourage each of us. I've rewritten my mission statement. I actually, when I was pulling out some paperwork, I found this was mine because we had to put ours up in the classroom when my students would do theirs. This was mine from years and years ago, and it was up in my classroom. And again, this was the detailed version, but I rewrote mine just recently because my life has changed so much, in the last 25, 30 years. So, but I really do encourage you to come up, write your mission statement out. And this is something that I have heard our leaders say more than once, a goal not written is only a wish. And I've heard the quote before, and I hear this with our team and our team leaders, and it is very true. So setting those goals and writing them, then I had this was just an example. This is how I wrote mine out, and it intersects knowledge, skill, and desire. 2, and this, this is my general here. For me, it's embrace health and live intentionally, willingly, and naturally sharing my passion for Christ and restored health. And then this is 2, the what I want to do, how I want to do it, and then so that, what is the desire that I have? So I really encourage you to take the time to write out a mission statement, however general it is, you want to make it, because it gives you that map that it's going to help you then know how to respond, and that, E plus R equals O, responding based on principles and responding proactively because you have your mission statement.
Stephanie, would you say a mission statement is almost like a purpose statement?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And again, incorporating both personal and professional. And because again, it's seeing life through principles. For effective business practices, with the principles are going to be the same as the principles that we have for an effective private life. So, but a purpose statement based upon your principles. Habit 3 is put first things first and prioritize and manage your time. And 2 quotes by Stephen Covey: where you're headed is more important than how fast you're going. And the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And when we look at time quadrants, to build an effective business and to build an effective personal life, we want to live right here where I've highlighted it. And so Covey talks about 4 different quadrants that we spend our life in. Quadrant 1 are those things that are important and urgent. Quadrant 2 is what is important but not urgent. And then we have quadrant 3, urgent but not necessarily important. And then quadrant 4, complete and total mind wasting, things that are both not urgent and not important. Sean Covey refers to these as the procrastinator is, one who takes something that could have been a quadrant 2, puts it off. So procrastinator. Quadrant 2, the prioritizer. Quadrant 3, the yes man. And quadrant 4, the slacker. So that's the Sean Covey's take on that. And here are the results of living in those different quadrants. When we spend our life, our work life, especially when we spend it right here in quadrant 1, we're going to experience stress, burnout, feeling trapped, health problems can come from, and I mean, obviously not all problems come from living in quadrant 1. That is not what this is saying, but it can cause health problems if we spend our time, our work time right here. And that's one of the things that I think LifeWave does very well, at least my experience has been, is really encouraging people to live right here, where things important but not urgent. Prioritizing, planning, use your calendar, being principle centered, being true to yourself, and taking care of your physical health. And you look at, building relationships. It's, living that habit 7, having purpose, finding balance, which of course, all of that is going to then increase peace and joy. And so this is really the goal, learning to live here in habit 3, in where we are living what's important, but not urgent. And this, again, we here, get your calendars out and plan for those big rocks. That I would always, what I would have my students, I would give them Easter eggs, and I would have them they would each have a couple of Easter eggs, and they would write things on them that were important to them. And then we would put them in, I'd have a big bowl in the classroom, and we'd put them in there. And then we would, all of this, the sand that you see here, we would try to put the sand in. Well, we'd put the sand in first. I'm sorry, that's how we would do it. We'd put the sand in first, and then we would try to put all of the Easter eggs in, and they would never fit. But if we put the Easter eggs in first, then we had time for all of that. That would be the quadrant 3 and the quadrant 4. Living in those things that are not really important, not urgent, but we would have a lot more time for them when we put the big rocks in first, when you put the big things in first. So that's, we talk about calendars all the time on our team, and just helping us stay organized. And it's important to plan those big rocks first. So, okay. Habit 4 is moving toward interdependence. This is think win-win, seek first to understand. And synergize is working together. And that's where we talk about the relationship bank account. So we did the personal bank account relates to habits 1, 2, and 3. The relationship bank account is habits 4, 5, and 6. Keep your promises, small acts of kindness, being loyal, learning to listen, saying I'm sorry, set clear expectations. So the relationship bank account relates to what you can see, the tree that you can see, not the roots. Habit 4 is win-win. And the reason I chose this image with the Jenga to teach habit 4, to introduce it, I would always set up 4 or 5, depending upon the class size, different Jenga sets in the classroom. And I'd have my kids go through and they would all play Jenga. And then we would talk at the end about how the different teams played and who ended up being the most successful. Because if we think honestly, how do we play Jenga? Some of us are more competitive than others. And are we win-lose when we play Jenga? We want to set that next person up to fail. Is our goal to be win-win? Is it for all of us to succeed, for all of us to move and advance? And again, I think this is, when you look at our professional lives, this right here is where I see LifeWave. It's very much a win-win environment. And learning to think win-win, I win, you win, we all win. and avoiding, as Sean Covey calls them, the tumor twins, competing and comparing. Competing with yourself makes you better. Competing with others makes you bitter. And then by comparing yourself to others does more damage than any other self-destructive habit. And I think this right here is so important, because when we think win-win, I want to have great health. I want to be successful, but I want the next person to be successful too. And I mean, how many of us though you see someone who starts, say, they've started with LifeWave, and then, they become manager, and then bam, they're director right away. And you're like, oh, that didn't happen for me. But that person's journey is very different than my journey. Each of our journeys is going to be different, but we have to trust that journey. And we're not being true to ourselves if we're comparing ourselves to that other person. Well, we don't know what their journey has been like. We don't know what has happened to get them where they are. And it's not a competition. If we're being true, living by principles, and we are, living in habit one, trying to be proactive, we're trying to live by our map that we've created. We're trying to live in the important but not urgent. Well, there's nothing to compare, because someone else's journey is very different than ours. And so this is just avoiding the tumor twins is so important, because we will arrive at our destination at the perfect time for us. Habit 5, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. And I love this quote by Teddy Roosevelt: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I used to teach a curriculum to teachers based upon the book, of The Aladdin Factor, and was the name of the book that I would teach. And that this was one of the biggest principles right here. Our students, my students were successful in my classroom, but my students knew, number one, they knew that I cared. That was what was most important. And when our students know how much we care, then they're going to care a little bit more about what we know. It's the same thing with clients or potential clients. If we listen before we speak, then we're going to understand a little bit more who they are, and they're going to feel heard. And if they feel heard, then they're a little more inclined to listen to us. And so learning to listen, this is, I would say, in my opinion, this is, I think, the most difficult of all of the habits for the majority of people. And a lot of it is just because very often in life we're in a rush. And so we're in a rush. So, we want to say what we're going to say and get it said because we got to move on to the next thing. Or we don't know how much time there's going to be. And so learning to just stop and listen. And I encourage each of us to do that, to over this next week, just take the time to stop and just really listen to someone. And it may be someone who there's absolutely no chance that they're going to, that they're going to be a client. I'm just saying in general around people, taking that time and learning to really practice this. Because it is a skill. It requires that intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. We want people to know that we care. If that's in our mission statement, well, we want to be genuine and when we speak with people. And so then the skill, how are we going to do that? The stopping, the listening, the truly looking through the paradigm or the lenses of principles, not a prejudging or any of these roadblocks that you would see, but truly looking through the lens of wanting to hear what they have to say and seeing how they're speaking and hearing what they're saying, but also understanding maybe, why. I mean, I had a perfect example was last week. It ended up because we had to change the time. There were only a couple of us at water aerobics. So it was me, and then it was one other girl, and she's one of my yoga students. And she'd been gone for a couple of weeks visiting family. And she's got an aunt and an uncle who are in a really difficult situation right now, separate, they're brother and sister, not a couple. And so the entire hour we were working out, I was asking her questions, and she was just sharing. And later that day, later that night, Thursday night, I got a text from her just thanking me for listening. And she said, I didn't realize how much I needed to just share that with someone other than my husband. And so, it was a blessing to me. And it was funny because I kind of chuckled to myself because I'd actually been working on this that morning. And so it was like perfect timing for me to actually practice what I was working on that day. But, we're blessed when we listen and we allow someone else to do the talking. And I think I love this right here. Our language is, when we're speaking, is only 7% the words that we're saying, 38% are voice and inflections, and 55% body language. That's pretty powerful when we think about it. And so how engaged are we? Even when someone is talking with us. So, what is our body language? When, are we doing this? And sometimes it's tough, but just putting that phone down so someone can really see even, in our body language that we're listening. So I just really working on and just setting a goal for learning to be a genuine listener and, listening with our eyes, heart, and ears, standing in their shoes, practice mirroring, not mimicking what they're saying, but, saying, my gosh, I'm just hearing you say that, boy, you have just really been through it lately. And, I'm so sorry that you've been struggling with so much. But sometimes just for someone to just hear back that someone sees them and recognizes what they're dealing with is huge and goes a long way to building that effective relationship, that healthy relationship. All right, habit 6 is synergize. There's your way, there's my way, and then there's the highway. And habit 6 it was always such a fun one to work with in the classroom. We would do all kinds of fun games and activities when we would do that. And I would always start with the geese because it's so powerful. Geese fly in a V formation. And of course, I live at the beach, so I see this all the time. And I just love it. I mean, it's funny. We'll be eating dinner and we'll see geese fly across, and we'll just stop eating just to watch them. It's just, it never gets old. And we see this all the time. But what's really fascinating is the science behind why they fly in a V formation. And I challenge each of us, because this is the ultimate goal. We're working for a win-win situation. Our upline is successful, which makes us more successful, which makes our downline more successful, which makes for everyone's healthier, everyone's feeling stronger. And we're learning to really listen empathically to people. And we're working together synergistically, flying in that V formation. So the science, they've done a bunch of science on the geese and why they always fly this way. The whole flock can fly 71% further when they fly together versus if they flew alone. When one goose flaps its wings, it creates an updraft for the geese behind it. As the lead goose gets tired, he will rotate to the back of the V and allow another goose to take the lead position. The geese in the back will honk to encourage those in the front. When one goose falls out of formation, it immediately feels the resistance of trying to fly alone and quickly gets back into formation. And then finally, when one goose gets sick or is wounded and falls out of formation, two geese will follow it down to help and protect it. They will stay with the injured goose until it either gets better or it dies. Then they will join a new formation or create their own until they catch up with their own group. But I just think, this just shows that synergy, how much stronger we all are when we work together rather than doing it on our own. I would always show clips from the movie Apollo 13 when I was teaching the 7 habits. And there's the most clear example of synergy. And I love in Apollo 13, and I can't remember his name now, it's been so many years, and he would say, we have to make this fit into this hole using nothing. And he had a bunch of items on the table. That was how they got Apollo 13 home. And that was why they made it back to Earth. And, it's the perfect example of synergy. Each individual scientist could not come up with it, but working together, they were able to come up with the highway. So the synergistic relationship is, and this is key here, trust. Learning to build trust, that's putting that time in the relationships and building trust and a high level of cooperation. And when you see down here where you have low trust, low cooperation, you're living that win-lose or that lose-win. It's not a win-win situation. So we have to really build trust and a desire to cooperate and a willingness to cooperate in order for us to move along this line up to being respectful, and compromise is good. It's not that it's a bad thing, but we still are losing if we're having a compromise. Whereas when we get to synergy, it's win-win. Everybody wins. It's celebrating the differences. It's teamwork, open-mindedness, and finding new and better ways of doing things. So synergy is not just tolerating differences in people. It's not working independently. It's not thinking you're always right, and it's not compromise. It's everybody working together for the greatest good, individually as well as in together. So Mark Twain said, synergy is the bonus that is achieved when things work together harmoniously. And so this last slide is just, again, just on synergy. Great teams are made up of different types of people. We have plotters, followers, innovators, harmonizers, show-offs. They're the ones who add a whole lot of spice. But, we have different types. We don't want to all be the same. And so learning to embrace each other and embrace our differences. And, when there is an opportunity, or a problem, it's first hearing, first listening to try to understand the way one person is seeing it before you share your way of doing things or your way of seeing the situation. So it's that seeking to understand before being understood, and then working together to create new options to find that highway, which would be the best solution. And again, it all then comes back to, sorry, I gotta scroll. It all comes back to this right here, the, sharpening that saw, because these habits of effectiveness truly can make all the difference in the world, just in the way we even see things. But if we're not sharpening that saw, if we're not having daily renewal, we're going to burn out. And we're not going to be effective in our relationship with ourselves, and our relationship with family and friends, and then our relationships professionally. So, all right.
That was amazing, Stephanie. I know,
Thank you.
I've seen, Sandy, wow, this is great training. Thank you, Stephanie. Jenny, thank you so much, Stephanie. Hello, Willette. I do it right. Hello, Luvette. I'm practicing her name. It's so beautiful. She says, wow, God is truly amazing how he created and designed creation. And he shows up and he shows us in his creation how it should be with the body of believers, and how successful we can experience his best when we choose to work and walk in harmony. That is beautiful.
Yes, amen.
So
well, thank you.
So is now a good time to open up for some questions, some Q&A?
Absolutely.
Okay, so go ahead and raise your hand, guys. And let's see here, let's go and stop screen share. I'll let you do that.
Oh.
And just go ahead and raise your hand, guys. I see Dr. Donald is unmuted. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, just want to say I've been a chiropractor for 50 years. I've read these books before and heard them before I've done this, and this is one of the best, most fantastic seminars or webinars that we've seen. Everybody should see this. This should be recorded and have everybody do it because it is fantastic. Great reminder and fantastic. And I understand why some of the stuff that comes out of me automatically, where it comes from besides the Lord our God. But this is one of the most fantastic things I've seen. Everybody should see it. That's all I got to say. You did a fantastic job. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you so very much. I really, really appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And yes, to let everybody know, this is being recorded, and the recording will go up on Evolve team inside of Telegram, and also personal development and training inside of Telegram. All right, Marta, you unmuted yourself. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I have a issue trying to separate business and spiritual, because I am focused on reaching out to people to help them become Christians or better Christians, but I feel like I'm torn as to, am I reaching out to this person because I want them for a spiritual benefit or for a business benefit? How do you separate the two?
I try each day to just ask the Lord to bring those people into my path for his purposes. Now, when I share my testimony, I begin when I'm going to be sharing my testimony on Friday, of just how LifeWave has changed my life. But I begin with scripture because it was answered prayer based on scripture. And so, then that naturally then leads to a discussion of, how the patches can help a certain situation or such. Again, but it's that circle of influence versus the circle of no control. When I pray, Lord, help me to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear when you bring someone into my path. And then I try to be very faithful to that when that happens. And of course, we all miss opportunities, unfortunately, but And then I will, if I feel like maybe I'm starting to, like you said, spiritual versus professional, it's like, oh Lord, take over here, show me, kind of guide the conversation. And so I'll rely on prayer in those situations.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Marta. All right, anyone else like to unmute themselves and share or ask a question with Stephanie? See, it's good, Stephanie, when no one has a question, because that means you were really clear. That was awesome. I always look at that as a positive. Wow. Okay. So, I don't know about you guys. I'm sitting there taking pictures of some of your slides, Stephanie, and man, it's like those are golden nuggets that, parts of it. I was like, oh, that right there is is our vision board, right? And I'm like, oh, I need to put that little saying up there and or share it, within my team and whatnot. So I thank you so much for that. And I'm sure everybody else was pretty much doing the same. But it is on recording, so you can definitely replay and take screenshots or whatever you like when it's uploaded. Any last thoughts there, Stephanie?
No, I think you commented on it, the E plus R equals O. That really is huge. I had that in a frame, 8.5 by 11 frame in my classroom. It was up on the wall, E plus R equals O. And if we learn to just kind of think that way and stop and respond based upon what is truly internal, those roots in the tree, and learning to respond that way, it changes everything, including how we see the world.
Yeah. When I teach, pay attention to your emotional triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who delivered said, experience that you're triggering, it is not their problem, their fault that you are being triggered. That is something that which you hold inside that you haven't processed yet. And the thing is you need to really take the time to say, okay, what is my outcome that I want out of this conversation? What do I want out of this conversation? And what's the best way to approach this conversation so I can get there and make sure that I'm understood?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, if you respond in a reactive defensive mechanism, that's going to get you nowhere. We all know that. We've all experienced that and come back and gone, oh, right? Dang, didn't do that one right. And that's okay. You might not get it the right first, second, third, 200th time, but it's all just a focus of every moment of time.
Yes, exactly.
Leola, you have your hand up. Please go and mute yourself and say hello.
Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. I just want to ditto what the doctor said, because I have read the books and I have heard this presentation in various ways over the last, many, many years. And I have never heard it so clear and so well. You did a fantastic job. And like I say, I've heard this presentation so many different ways, both in professional settings and Zooms, and you did a fantastic job. I want to thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That truly does mean the world to me. It does. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
What I like to say is, for you doing this for over 10 years with the kids, I mean, what a gift. I wish I had a teacher like you, right?
Oh,
and actually more teachers should teach this, to be human, to know how to work on your personal development so that you can go out in the world and traverse it without feeling like you're a ping pong ball constantly being smacked back and forth. So I honor you and I appreciate your work and what you've done.
I did actually, when I had developed my curriculum, Mesquite ISD, which is where I taught, they ended up, it became a part of, and I don't know if they're still doing it, it's been so many years, but I know they were, as of a few years ago, several teachers were still using it, but it became a part of the reading curriculum in the middle schools for most of the schools in the district. Because I'd get phone calls from parents, after the kids had written their mission statements, and I'd get calls. Okay, I don't know what you're doing to my kid, but it's pretty incredible. She didn't scream last night, when she got in trouble. She was actually respectful. but it was that because they would have to, I would hold them accountable to what they had written on their mission statement, and they had to give examples, you know, of that, trying to apply it. So thank you. It was very powerful in the classroom, that's for sure.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Any other questions? Last opportunity or comments? Oh, anybody? All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. I really
Thank
appreciate this.
you.
Honestly, I think I've heard of this book, you know, definitely has, you know, wafered its way in and out, but thank you for this clear training. It's a fantastic book, and I cannot wait to pick it up myself. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Y'all have a blessed day.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.